Welcome to the Growing Embodiment Podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Harris, a coach, trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, entrepreneur, longtime vegan, and fellow human being. Join me and my guests as we discuss topics ranging from self-growth and personal development to breathwork, healing, relationships, energy, spirituality, and so much more. If you've ever felt like you don't fit in and want to have a safe place to share your thoughts, work through your feelings, and explore different ideas with others who understand, or you're on a journey of self-healing and looking to reconnect with yourself and are just trying to figure out who you are and what you want, then this is the place for you. Come as you are and get ready to connect and find your way back to yourself, as that's what embodiment is all about. So glad to have you here. This is gonna be fun. Now let's get into it.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast today. I've got my friend, mental health educator and empowerment coach, Alaya, here with me. And we're both breathwork facilitators as well. We've gone through the Pause Breathwork certification program and we became friends. And so I'm really excited to talk to her today about our kind of experience with breathwork. So welcome, Alaya.
Thank you. What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get into this conversation because we just graduated from this program and are just like in the depths of convincing the world that we've got a magic tool to help them ground into their body and change their entire life and, release the past and step forward. So I'm excited to kind of dive into just all of that juiciness and nerd out on it a little bit with you.
Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about breathwork, especially I think both of us just want to get it out there into the world about how impactful breathwork really is. And the simplicity of it and just how transformational it can be, because we did this program together and I don't think either of us are the same person that we were from the beginning of our breathwork journey to today.
There's no way. Yeah, totally different. The downloads and the shifts have been crazy over the last 6 months. And I knew that was going to be important. I don't know about you, but I mean, I found the Pause program that we graduated from, Pause Breathwork, I found it kind of serendipitously, but I did check out other breathwork programs before officially signing on because I was like, am I crazy to just like all into this program that I didn't really even do any research around? But it was one of the longest breathwork programs I could find. Like most of the breathwork training, even the highly regarded programs, are only like a day or two, or maybe like a week-long program. They're very, very short. And I'm sure there are some others out there that I didn't find because, again, I didn't do a terrible amount of research, but I looked into it and I was like, I have so much to learn personally when it comes to subtle healing and the body and really connecting, that I can't imagine someone just teaching me a tool and then going out and doing it without already having embodied that myself. And like, I needed the time, you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, 6 months, good. We spend the first 3 months just focusing on ourselves before we start practicing, like amazing, because I don't know about you, but I needed it. I needed those 3 months for sure.
Oh yeah. And I didn't realize other programs were so short. I experienced breathwork from a facilitator who did this training. I was like, this is it. I didn't research other programs, and it's true. You need the time. I think often in any sort of healing journey or when we're learning something or going through shifts, you need that space to expand and to really kind of drop into yourself. What am I feeling now? Work through it before you facilitate for someone else. And without that first couple of months where we did the work for ourselves and experienced breath work and did energy work and did healing work and did all the things that we did, we wouldn't be here. Like, I wouldn't be able to show up the same way in sessions. So the fact that you're saying there are places that it's a one-day training.
Most of them, I feel like most of them are super short trainings. And not to say that they're trainings by amazing facilitators that are doing great work, but it just doesn't feel like enough for me. That wouldn't be an alignment for me. And I know that if I'd done that, if I'd gone into just like a 24-hour training to really just learn how to facilitate a session on a more surface level, I don't know, I'd probably be like trying to get everyone to go like super gung-ho, like push through like really intense breath work, like get in the body, like breathe, that's the state that I was at before I did this program as well. I'd go into massage sessions and I'd be like, dig in, force it out. And we'll talk about this, but like, yeah, I had, a lot of kind of growth and development to do personally, and just letting people have their process and showing up agendalessly was a really, really big one for me to learn during this program. And I would not have been able to do that with just a day or two training.
No.
And it's so powerful. It's so powerful, this tool. Like sometimes people start crying within like 60 seconds and you're like, okay, you needed this to tune in and like connect with the body.
Some release is happening here.
Some release is happening. Yeah. That it's something to really, I think, take care of when you're facilitating people. It's like a sacred space that you're creating. So how did you get into the program? I'm so curious, because I don't know if we've actually fully even gone over that.
With my coach, she did both of Sam's kind of certifications, the coaching certification and the breathwork certification. And she offered a 4-week series of breathwork. I was like, okay, I like her. She's offering this for free, so I'll show up. And I was the only person that showed up every single week. I kept coming back. Sometimes it was just me there. And I was like, this is like the missing piece for me. Honestly, like something special happened in those sessions. And then I think a month later, I was on the phone with like a recruitment kind of coach person for Pause. And I didn't need any convincing. I was like, I looked through, this is what I want. When does it start? Okay, here's the down payment. And I just had to wait because it was like August when I registered and the program didn't start till October. So I just knew that I wanted to do this because I had felt it for myself. And it's such a like felt experience. It's really powerful. And when you have a glimpse of that, or even just a few moments, it's like, oh my gosh, I witnessed and I felt how powerful this was for myself. And now initially, I wasn't even sure if I was going to be a facilitator for others. I just wanted to have this experience and like understand it more. And now learning all that we did about like the nervous system, a little bit about the science of breath work, that was really cool, but really going even deeper into that, like the energetics of it, because don't breathe air, we breathe energy, not knowing that before. And now having this connection, this deeper connection of like, oh, I want to calm down, I'll do a halo breath. Oh, I need to release something. Okay, let's do some tractive, or like, just being able to do that for myself and then doing it for other people, and having that constant connection with myself through my breath of like, I'll just notice sometimes I'll be going around and I'll be breathing more shallowly. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling a little anxious, but it's just like an observation now rather than an identification, but it's like that stepping in point. So
yeah, even just you talking about it has me breathing more intentionally.
Yeah.
So, like, oh connect to the breath. That's right. Be intentional. Exactly. Do you remember the first session that you did? Like if you got down on a micro level, like what the thoughts were that were going through your head, like how you felt going into the session versus during it versus coming out of it for the first time?
I mean, I have my journal, and the first session was kind of like it was actually an hour and a half, like meditative workshop style session. And I was the only one there. So she had me journal before and after. So I could actually go back and find what I had written. I remember being nervous beforehand because she had sent out an email with all the things like somewhere you're laying down and no pillow and a blanket because you might have temperature changes and like an eye mask and all this and a journal. And I was like, what is all this stuff? Like, I have to be on camera too. And I was feeling really uncomfortable. Like, she didn't have me mute myself either. I was like, she's going to hear me like making noises and breathing and watching me move. And I didn't know what to expect. And so I was really nervous about that because this is prior to launching the podcast or anything, where I still had this fear of being seen and taking up space. And this is now you've created a space for yourself and you're literally like making sounds. You're being heard, being witnessed at this deeper level, like one-on-one with another human being. And in this basic function of just breathing, like this life force, they're witnessing your life force in your body and moving because you move in breath work, which in the beginning I was like, I'll just stay still. I don't want to do that. So
like I'm just going to dead fish right here. Like no one will observe my process.
Yeah. Can I turn my camera off? No, it's not safe. Okay. So yeah, I don't know about you. Like, did you experience anything similar when you first started breathwork?
When I first, I'm one of the first breath sessions that I did, like proper on online Zoom breath session. I think it was a group setting. And I remember, I think I may have already even signed up for the program before I did my first proper breathwork session, or maybe I'd done one with another facilitator, but I got onto one of Sam's calls around that time. And, there are like at least 50 people on there. And she kind of set us up and we're like, okay, it's going to be on camera. I need to be able to just see your body. And, you can mute. I think we're all muted, but she's like, everyone, take a couple minutes, get yourself set up, get the blankets, get the things, get water if you need it. And so I got up and I left my living room and I'm like, I'm alone in my house, right? Like it's safe. It's chill. No one's there to observe me. I'm alone in my house. I get up, leave the computer screen to get a glass of water. I didn't need water. I think I just wanted to leave the computer screen. And I remember filling my cup up and then just standing in the kitchen, witnessing my body's resistance to going back in. And I was like, oh my God, Alaya, like what do you have to work through? Because you feel this vulnerable showing up on Zoom where like no one's watching you except the facilitator who's just there to guide a journey, like not judging, knows exactly what they're doing, has 50 other people to look at. Like this feels so scary to be seen and to allow people to witness me connecting to whatever space I needed to create for myself. Like, yeah. So I remember that feeling really potently, standing in my kitchen, like both hands clasped on the cup, just be like, oh, I don't want to go in. And then having all of the inner dialogue around that, we're like, whoa, this program's going to rock your world if your body is this terrified to be seen. And to be honest, like I still feel that way sometimes going into breath sessions. Like it is still something that I'm working on, really inviting people into my process. And I just have to keep my awareness around it, when everyone's like, all right, set up your cameras and settle in. Since so much of breath work is done online now, I'll feel that like resistance to like wanting to set up the camera, quote unquote, but like not really set it up, just being like, oh, well, that's the best I could do. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like put it properly on your body, don't cut corners and really.
So you can actually be seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so fascinating, especially since now as a facilitator, we know that like when we show up to breathe a group or to breathe an individual, we have zero expectations of what they're going to do because everyone experiences breath work differently. So you're going to have, say you have 5 people on a camera, one person's going to hold perfectly still the whole time and they might be asleep. But they might need to do that. They may have needed to just go super deep and rest. And that's okay. And then one person's going to be rolling around and like getting up and getting essential oils and like they might be breathing on their hands and knees at some point, where you're like, okay, do your thing. And then another person's like cat is crawling on their face, and they're like looking at the Zoom camera and you're like, are they just super bored? I don't know what's going on over there, and you just have this whole variety of responses. And as a facilitator, you're just like, cool. Well, not at the beginning. At the beginning, my little people pleaser brain was like, I'm failing. Everyone's responding differently. And I have no way to gauge if this is effective for them or not, but as we've moved through breathing people and really gaining experience there, I realized like, oh, you can't put any judgments at all on anyone's process. Not that I was judging them. I was judging me and my ability to hold space because I had an idea of what that might look like, but realizing like, everyone breathes and responds to breath work so differently. And it's been so healing to just let go of all expectations. I don't know if you've experienced that too. And just realize like, wow, everyone really gets to lean into permission to being their unique selves during a breathwork session. And like, I get to do that too, as a facilitator and just hold the space that comes intuitively and naturally to me and that we've been trained to create and then just let it go,
I think what you like from your experience of your first session and even continuing, the resistance that comes up is like, it sounds simple. Breathwork is just breathing, right? Like we all breathe and all these little things, these little ruptures, these little people pleasers, the fear of, like you said, like dead fish, like just, I'm going to stay right here and this will create safety. And it all gets to come up in a session and everyone expresses it in a different way, like observing your breathers. Like both of us had kind of discussed this when we were first starting out, of when you witness all these different expressions of someone's asleep, someone's got that cat on their face, someone's like looks like they're giving birth on their hands and knees. Like, others are shuddering and crying, and then someone else is completely still. And I'm like, are you getting anything from this? And it's like, we have all these little stories come up.
Yeah.
And it's like releasing those stories and learning that like everyone gets to be, they just want to be held, they want to be seen, they want to be safe to be themselves. And sometimes they need permission from you to do that. And it's such a beautiful thing to witness, as long as you're able to remove that expectation, to remove that like I can somehow control or alter their experience. Like I can change my cues and then this will happen. It's like, you don't know what's going to happen. Like everyone on that screen is hearing the same music, the same cues, feeling my energy and having a different response.
Yeah. And isn't that a beautiful like metaphor for life as well? You might have 100 people laughing in an audience, but they're experiencing totally different thoughts and different associations, with whatever the joke was, whatever they're laughing about in that experience. Like we all get to be held in that space. And like, that is the hardest thing to lean into, I think, for a lot of people, is finding safety in slowing down and connecting to whatever the body intuitively needs or desires in that moment, because we're so used to overriding it with the mind and just being like, go, 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 do, ignore, shut that emotion down or project it out of the body and get rid of it. Like so used to having sort of a manager come in, in our mind and be like, this is what it looks like to be an adult. This is what the body should feel. This is how you should react. Whereas when you slow down, you never know what's going to come out. You never know what's going to come out. I was really surprised actually in the beginning of the program when we started to learn how to do feelers, which for someone who hasn't done feelers before, you literally just sit and you're witnessed by another person for, whatever, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and they just hold space for you, silent space. And your job is just to tune into the body and feel. Sounds very simple, but it was so scary the first time. And I remember being so surprised after we did it a few times, realizing that like, I never knew what was going to come up because I didn't pay attention to my body throughout the day. And so I found this like curiosity in that, in the same way that I find in breath sessions now too. I'm like, I wonder how this one's going to go.
And it does get easier.
Not, it does get easier.
Beginning, it's so new, it feels overwhelming. And then, not to say it's easy, but there is a sense of ease or simplicity, like you had mentioned before we hit the record button, a simplicity to it of just being there with yourself. Like when I think of what is breath work, and I'll pose the same question to you of like, what do you think breath work is? It's almost just allowing yourself to be as simple as breathing and feeling into yourself, witnessing, experiencing, releasing, healing your own self with your own breath. And as a facilitator, we just kind of hold the space for you to do that yourself.
Right.
And I think that was maybe why it was the missing piece for me, so to speak, because where else in life do you just get to be there with yourself and have permission to just let everything come out, whatever needed to come out, which you don't even consciously know. Like I've had completely sessions where I was just completely bawling my eyes out and I didn't even know that I needed that. Or others where I facilitated or myself have fallen asleep. And people are like, oh, I feel bad that I fell asleep. Don't feel bad. You felt safe enough. Your body needed that.
Yeah.
Honor that. And so that to me is like breathwork is just this way of connecting with the body, and it's releasing and bringing in the energy that you need. Because sometimes we just draw on energy from what's around us through the breath, and other times we release it with the breath. So it's like, I don't know. What do you think breath work is, if you were to explain it?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think it's, to piggyback off of what you're saying, I think it's really, really powerful in that way. Offering whoever is breathing the opportunity to be within their own power. And sometimes that's just a tiny baby step. But as a therapist, or former therapist, when I was working with people, it's largely intervention based. It's largely guided by the words that I'm using, in response to whatever the client is bringing into session. The way that I am intervening, even just with myself as a therapist, is prominent in session, right? It's an important piece there. And not to say that breathwork facilitators are important, right? The work that we do is very significant in creating the tone of the space and the energy and the intuitive messages that you bring through as you're cueing people throughout their breath journey. All of that is super potent. But it's not based on your wisdom, right? A breather's experience is not based on your wisdom, right? You could say the same thing in a breath session over and over and over, right? It is safe to feel, or surrender the fluidity of your life, your whatever the mantra is. And you could literally follow a script like that at a basic level, and people would still have experiences that are really powerful, and they'd have different experiences every time they breathe with you through that. Not saying that following scripts and doing the same thing over and over is the best thing. It's much more fun to play and like invite in that energy, but there isn't a tool that I've personally found that is as effective in teaching people how to allow themselves to be witnessed in their process of learning how to be human and connect to themselves, and really building empowerment there. Like, I breathed someone maybe 2 weeks ago who I'd never met before, and they lived literally like as far as way from Los Angeles as you can get, like all the way on the other side of the world. They'd never breathed before themselves. They'd never done any breath work, and were very sort of anxious and feeling dissociated at the beginning of the session. They didn't feel like they had a connection to the body. They felt stressed and isolated. And so we leaned in and we breathed, and we kind of touched on what that person was feeling, but we didn't talk it through per se. And by the end of the session, I'm like, invitation to share whatever came up for you, if that feels good, or we could talk about journal prompts. You kind of offer a connection point at the end of the journey. And this person just sort of like sat up and was like, whoa, whoa. And I'm like, tell me more. What do you mean? She's like, I've never felt that way before. I now know that like, I don't have to worry about what other people think, what they think of me, or what they think I should do. I don't have to like go out and worry about finding the right answer for my life. Like, I just can slow down and I can ask my body what it needs me to know, and it will tell me. And, they followed up like a week or two later as well. And we're like, I just have to tell you how powerful that was. And how freaking cool is that? That just by giving someone a space, not only where they can connect to their power, but they can be witnessed by a facilitator or by someone that's safe, connecting to their power, where they can be fully in their authentic center, regardless of whoever else is there. Like, that is breathwork to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's so simple because you take that tool everywhere you go. It's just your way of breathing. You can utilize it in whatever way you want, however often you want. There are no barriers to it, essentially. And you get to lean into being like ferociously you in whatever you need in that moment, without judgment, without fear. And that trickles out to the rest of your life. Really allowing people to see you and who you are and the world that you are creating for yourself, and taking up space, asking for what you need, ultimately valuing your existence more than worrying about who you should be and what the perceptions are of you. So that's a very long-winded answer for what I believe breathwork is. It's more about the power of it. But I think that's the most potent, at least it's been the most potent experience of it for me.
It's a way of describing it, because I think a lot of people want to picture like, well, what do we do? Like, if we're having a session, I'm just laying on the bed and breathing and listening to music. And it's like, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And it's so much more than that. And as a facilitator, I could teach you the breath patterns and you could do it on your own. And I think having the experience you just described with that other human being, we're allowed to go to a deeper place when we're being held by someone else. And that's also what the beauty of the 6-month journey for us was. We were able to go to a deeper place because you can only take someone as far as you've come. And so breath work is like the nervous system. Like, we've done nervous system work on ourselves. So now we can share kind of our nervous system, our energy, our safety with another human being. Because in the beginning, I felt super awkward. I don't know about you, of like I described with that session, my first session. She's going to hear me breathing, like hear me sighing maybe, or like, I don't know what's going to happen. And like, I didn't even want to make eye contact. Now it's like, I get on a call with someone. It's like, okay, let's stare into each other's eyes and like breathe, like co-regulate each other.
Yeah.
And it's not awkward at all for me. And it's like, we've had calls in our program where the other person didn't look at me and I was looking at them when we were doing those kind of co-breathing exercises. And I'm like, no, look at me. Like, this is the power. And so the reason I highlight this is because if you're not feeling comfortable in yourself or in your own power, coming to a facilitator like us, who we've been through this, we've felt that and we've moved through it, and are constantly moving through it, I will teach you. Like if I'm super comfortable with it, you're going to feel more comfortable with it. And same thing with the power of like the breath. You might, in the beginning, I had the thoughts of like, am I doing this right? Like, should I be breathing harder? Like, why don't I feel anything? Or like, this is intense? Or like, what breath pattern am I supposed to be in? What was this called?
Right.
And we get to be there to be like guiding you, reminding you so that you get out of your head with all those thoughts and you get back into the body, into your heart, into your soul, whatever you want to call it, like that other layers of you outside of just the mental, which is where most of us live. Like the feeler you described, we get out of the head in the beginning. It was like when I did a feeler for the first time.
I know. Yeah. Let me just
all these thoughts, all these thoughts.
Yeah.
And then eventually it gets into the point where it's like more silence actually. And you're just feeling in and witnessing yourself. And that's super powerful to be able to witness and observe rather than identify. Because I think a lot of personal development, we hear about like the power of observation versus identification. Well, it's like, well, how do I do that? And yeah, you can journal and things, but I found like a bigger leap when I started doing breath work.
That ability to be with your emotions and what the body is experiencing rather than completely within it. Yeah. You get to breathe through that in a way. I don't know about you, but I've experienced this trickling out into my world as well, this kind of willingness to just be. And, you might get into an awkward conversation with someone, and past versions of me would probably fill that space with words. Like you're saying in the beginning of when you start doing feelers and allowing yourself to be witnessed and the process of connecting to your body, you want to fill it with words. And then you slowly start getting used to sitting and just being and connecting with whatever's coming up for you. I've found that in conversations with other people and just willing to be there, just like sitting in silence, not needing to be the one to carry the conversation or to make other people feel comfortable, just being in whatever energy I'm in. Not that I'm like seething, angry, and like going around spreading that kind of energy, but just being and allowing people to take care of themselves. Like that's such a shift from old people pleaser Alaya, but also like from having both the experience of being a breather now for so long and facilitating, I found like a total letting go of like needing to know the rules in a way where I'm like, whatever, if I don't even know the rules of this situation, that's fine, and I used to have anxiety going into breath sessions thinking, how am I doing this right? What do I need to do with my body? I feel like I need to move, but I don't know if I'm allowed to move, or I feel like maybe, wow, I feel like I need to scream into a pillow, but I don't want to look weird. Is anyone else doing that? And I had so much inner dialogue around the judgments of that and wanting to follow the rules and make the facilitator feel comfortable or make them feel like they were doing a good job based on my response, and it's been so freeing to let that go and realize that like there are no rules. We completely create the world that we exist within. And the best way that you can honor the life that you've been given or the life that you've chosen to step into in this human body, in this life experience, is to just allow yourself to be witnessed by you and by other people in your truth and in your process, and allow that healing journey that we're all on to be transparent and like find power there. I was talking recently about how once you lean into that transparency of like letting your body be in the state that it's in and embracing it in that state, holding compassion for it, and then speaking out whatever needs you have and expectations and desires, really communicating who you are, communicating your boundaries, taking actions around those. Like once you just really lean into that process, things don't feel vulnerable anymore because you suddenly find your power in what makes you feel most vulnerable. You're like, oh, I'm feeling super anxious in this moment. Interesting. I'm going to sit with that. I'm going to find curiosity around it. And then I know I'm going to find some deep fucking wisdom at the end of it. And that is going to make me a bolder, more courageous, more inspired person. And other people can see that process too, because I know I'm coming out of it with some juicy information about what I need and what I want to create, So vulnerability just kind of stops existing in that way because the meaning that you make out of those experiences are like powerful and encouraging. Have you experienced that at all?
Yeah, like what I'm hearing you say is about having that separation of, oh, I'm triggered or I'm activated right now. And instead of spiraling into these maybe behaviors that we didn't like or judgments against ourselves, now it's like witnessing it, curiosity, what can I learn from it? And holding the duality of like, this is uncomfortable. And there's something to learn here. There's an insight, there's a takeaway if I just feel through it.
Right.
And so it loses its hold on you of like this fear, this avoidance that I think a lot of society has, including myself, especially in the past, of having these uncomfortable emotions come up, these feelings, these thoughts that we don't like. So we just dismiss,
Right.
you know, like you said before, project onto someone else or numb with whatever substance, food, drug that we want.
Yeah.
That is our choice. And so, yeah, it's been a process of really observation and of stopping that whole bypassing, not stopping entirely, but really getting more aware of. I think it's brought in an awareness and a mindfulness to these things, not to say that I don't ever do them. I'm a human being. I'm imperfect. I'm not infallible here, or I am fallible. Yeah.
I'm
And I
very
think that's
fallible.
very fallible. I think that's the power here, where things that used to trigger me and I would try to avoid still trigger me. And there's an awareness of it and an ability to hold two or more feelings, thoughts at the same time. It's like I can recognize this is super uncomfortable and I really hate it. And I'm judging myself and like, I don't like this. And I'm also feeling this way too. And like, not having one override the other, where it's like I could be unhappy and depressed and that would be the only thing within me. And now it's like I can also have gratitude and connect with myself through the process. And so having that ability is like, that's where the power lies now, where you're essentially taking back your power from the things that previously would have controlled you.
Totally, because you're willing to observe. And that's the power of breath work, right? If we're going to nerd out on that, to regulate the nervous system, because so many of us go through our days in an activated survival state, even if it feels like it's been with you for so long that it must just be normal, right? It must be normal to feel depressed or have this much anxiety in your body, or to feel irritated and overwhelmed and stressed and worried and concerned. Even if you feel comfortable with those emotions and you've been able to rationalize why it's normal for them to exist in your body. Like your body is in a survival state when those emotions come up in your body. They always indicate that you are out of alignment with some sort of boundary or action that you need to take in order to get back into alignment and back into a state of like rejuvenation and rest. And anytime those emotions come up in your body, though, like you've said, once you get used to the process of just sitting with them and observing them without trying to shame them away or project them out of your body, like you get to be like, oh, this is my indicator for growth and new action. And that's where breath work comes in, right? You build the awareness such that you can see it come up and you're like, well, I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to do some halo active, in through the nose, out through the mouth. I'm going to do some triactive. I'm going to shake it up. Like, and there's so many more breath work patterns as well. I would actually love to know what your favorite breathwork patterns are. I think that'd be like a good thing to touch on for people, but you get to bring in your breath. There's no barriers to it at that point, to just breathe through that emotion, to regulate the nervous system and bring your mind back into like a settled state. And that's connected to the body. And then from there, like whatever insights need to come in will come in, and whatever actions you need to take will become clear. And then you can move through your day practicing those until you're just in alignment most of the time, you know?
Yeah. And it's sounding like the visual that came to me as you were talking about like alignment and how we can be in this state. It's like having a cloud around your head where you've gotten used to like your vision being slightly obscured by this rain cloud of like depression or anxiety or whatever it is for you. And then you're just like, oh, yeah, this is normal. Like I'm used to it, only having 50% visibility and not really knowing what's going on within myself or hearing my own thoughts, because I just hear the crash of the thunder of the anxiety and things. And it's like, this allows you to clear that and actually see what your aligned self like, oh, and then the insights come in, because you can't have insights when they're being blocked by this cloud. But then the cloud's clear and the sun comes in and you're like, whoa, okay, I know what my next step is. I know what feels good to me. I know what I need and want. And now I can go get that and take that aligned action. That's what often happens for me in a session, is like you come in like, okay, we're going to set the intention, and then you breathe. And then at the end, I always love a super long ending at the end of a session, because that's when like I've cleared all the stuff out with the breath. And then now things are coming to me and crystallizing, and it's like the clouds have cleared and the sun is shining and things are possible again. And I'm able to be like, this is me in my actual natural state, not in what I think is my natural state, because it's just my normal
Yes,
state.
yes.
Like the
Right.
day to day.
This is what it feels like to be embodied and calm and connected, and trusting, like really allowing yourself to trust and be held in whatever insights come up for you in that session. Huge. It's huge. I know, all those overwhelming emotions, like because your nervous system is in a survival state, when it sends you anxiety and depression and sadness, like they're trying to keep you safe. They're showing up in your body, or they started showing up when you were young and then continue to show up because they kept you safe and they want you to survive. But they become obviously maladaptive and dysfunctional when they're pervasive, and they keep you disconnected from your centered self. And it's okay if those are in your body. It's okay that you feel, I find a lot of people feel defensive of them too, right? Like why they have a right to be depressed, why their anxiety is correct. And that's because those emotions are self-justifying. They're like, I'm trying to keep you safe. I'm here for a reason. Like they're always going to self-justify why they should be there and be in the body, because that part of you does not have the trust to let go. But as you start to breathe through it, right, like you're saying, and getting used to that process and allowing, like not being like, I'm going to breathe in order to get rid of the depression, like it's got to go, or I'm going to breathe in order to get rid of it.
That's just bypassing.
Right. That's bypassing. That's trying to force it out. It's conditional, right? We talked about that. It's conditional healing, where healing needs to be more open, and it needs to be loving, and it needs to be unconditional in a way. We're just showing up to witness what the body needs, and allowing those emotions to slowly develop that tolerance and that safety for slowing down and connecting to your heart and finding that kind of open channel to your wisdom and what you need, and allowing the body to guide. It takes time, but our bodies are not meant to be activated and in a survival state at all times. Like our brains just get used to that, because that's the best we can do when we're kids. We're like, I feel like 3, 4, 8 years old a lot of the times when we get into these behavioral patterns of avoiding those overwhelming emotions or accepting them and not clearing them and not sitting with them. But of course, like we had no executive function. We didn't have people teaching us what to do with our emotions. And so we learned how to cope with them the best that we can. But we know now, as adults, as functioning humans in the world that have the ability to pull whatever tools and resources we need into our life, that like we can change the way our body interacts with our brain and the way that we cope with those feelings. And we can in fact like control our immune system with the breath, like there's so much power in the human body on a fundamental level that doesn't require any other mechanics or any other things. Like you don't need a cream, you don't need a fancy haircut, you don't need like a bunch of money. You can find that power just through connection and breathing and working with the energetics of the world in that way, and really curating the state that you exist within at all times. And that's just so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah, because like you're saying, we learned these things in childhood. Well, we know about neuroplasticity. We can learn other things too. And it's non-linear, and it takes time, and it's totally possible. Just because you're feeling one way now doesn't mean you have to be feeling this way forever.
Right.
And even if you are, the other thing too is like, even if you are feeling a certain way now, that's okay. Like letting everything be okay. That's one of the things that I took away from this whole journey of breath work and experience, is like, it all gets to be here.
Yeah.
And it's all here for a reason, and leaning into that and learning from it. And that's been a powerful experience.
Yeah. Just be babes. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, is learn how to just be.
Yeah.
Like
and so
defense mechanisms.
Oh yeah. I'll share my favorite breath pattern is the halo, into the nose and out to the mouth.
Okay.
And what about you?
I'm a triactive girl. I'm a triactive girl. It helps me clear my anxiety, because anxiety usually shows up for me in my like gut, in my stomach and my core. And so the triactive, because it's in through the belly, filling the heart, and then out, and it's all through the mouth, right? The 3-part breath, and it really shakes up the center of your energy in that solar plexus. Like That's the most effective for me. And it's hyper activating, but like I find it very soothing. As someone that also can struggle sometimes to connect deeply to the body and get out of the mind, having something more to do, like Halo, I love, but it'll put me to sleep very easily. And so having something more to focus on makes it easier for me to drop in, to have that extra like assignment to keep up a more active breath.
Yeah.
But yeah, I use it all the time. Also because I feel like it kind of mimics the panic in a way. You know how like homeopathic herbs, you take the like counter, and maybe I'm getting this wrong, but with a homeopathic herb, whatever tincture you're taking causes the opposite of like what your symptoms are, and somehow then balance what your symptoms are. I don't know. I'm explaining that terribly, but it's counterintuitive in a way. So it feels like Triactive would make anxiety worse, but because it sort of mimics the energy, the super activation of the body, it actually allows my body to like meet the energy and then clear it in that way, like find safety by just embracing it and fully leaning in. And of course, if you're very anxious and you're doing Triactive, do it very slowly, like build your tolerance up. Don't trick your body into feeling like it's hyperventilating, but it allows you to match that energy and move through it.
I guess if I'm really honest, my favorite are holds. I love a good bottom hold. Like that feeling into yourself, the like emptiness, because I've struggled with disordered eating and things. And I often would try and eat to fill the emptiness. And this is kind of mimicking, like you said, that emptiness that I used to avoid. It's like, so that makes sense to me now in hearing what you just described.
That. Yeah, that's so interesting. That's so interesting. I feel like you're very kind of like earthy, grounded energy. The slow halo, the bottom holds. My energy always wants to go up and out. I'm like top holds and activated breath. Let's do it.
But all have their own style and preference, which is really cool to learn about.
Yeah. There's so many to learn.
So, I mean, we could obviously go on talking about this, and I'll have to have you back on the podcast to talk about it. I
warned you. I was like, I can keep talking. You have to cut me off at some point. It's been super, super nice to connect with you on this, though.
Yeah, and how could the listeners find you?
They can find me at kaleidos-cope.com. So like kaleidoscope, or on Instagram at kaleidos.cope, and on TikTok on kaleidos-cope as well. Those are the most kind of active places that I'm at right now. And there'll be a top secret membership program coming out in the next few months, which is in development, that I'm very excited to share with everyone. But yeah, Instagram and TikTok are the best places to find me. And if you want to work one-on-one, then there's stuff up on the website.
Okay, and I'll put all that information down below as well.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to see how your business continues to build with all of your one-on-one breathwork clients and your coaching and all of that, and to lean into this process of getting people to breathe.
It's powerful. I'm looking forward to it too, the unfolding.
All of the unfolding. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Growing Embodiment podcast. I'd love to connect, and you can find us on all social media platforms at Growing Embodiment. Please also join our Facebook community, the Growing Embodiment community. We'd love to have you there. And the one thing that I ask is, if you found value in this podcast, please share it with a friend, like, follow, all that beautiful stuff. I can't wait to see you next week. Until then, have a wonderful day.